Adjustment meeting for Monday, January 22nd, 2018. I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Zoning Board to be open. Adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on January 9th, 2018, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Asbury Park Press and the Tri-Town News. Second, on January 9th, 2018, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on January 9th, 2018, said notice was posted in the office of the Zoning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code and your safety, please be advised that this facility is designed with 2 emergency exits, which are on your right at the front and rear of the meeting room. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77. And before we do the roll call, we need to have Mr. Turk sworn in.
Thank you, ma'am.
Please come into the vote.
He can read off this one. Thank you.
He's supposed to have a good memory, so he doesn't need to read them.
Raise your right hand. I, John Kyle Turk. Do solemnly swear. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of New Jersey. And that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And to the governments. Established in the United States and in this state. Under the authority of the people. So help me God. I do further solemnly swear. That I will impartially. And justly. Perform all the duties. Of the office of zoning board of adjustment. According to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Turk has been sworn in as a regular member.
John, I need that back.
And has already signed his oath and is now ready to be seated on the dais as a full-fledged member.
All right.
Big time, man. Big check, man.
Check.
Okay, Eileen, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Mr. Armada.
Present.
Mr. Mertens.
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Here.
Mr. Posh.
Here.
Mr. St. Clemente.
Here.
Mr. Turk.
Here.
Mr. Robosco.
Here.
Mr. Moretti, I have not heard from,
I haven't either.
and Chairman Nansen.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Eileen. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the
Thank you. Mr. Tropoli, you mind swearing in the professionals, please?
swear the testimony you give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I do. The record should reflect that Ms. Bean, Mr. Mallon, and Mr. Howard have all been sworn for the evening.
Thank you. Approval of minutes, regular meeting, October 2nd, 2017. Eligible voters, Mertens, O'Donnell, Posh, San Clemente, Turk, and Nansen. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Turk,
I'll second that motion.
seconded by Mr. O'Donnell. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Mr. Mertens.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Posh.
Yes.
Mr. St. Clemente.
Yes.
Mr. Turk.
Yes.
And Chairman Nansen.
Yes,
Motion's carried. Thank you.
thank you. Regular meeting, November 13th, 2017. Eligible voters, Armada, Mertens, O'Donnell, Posh, San Clemente, Turk, Nansen. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Turk,
I'll second that motion.
seconded by Mr. O'Donnell. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Armada.
Yes.
Mr. Mertens.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Posh.
Yes.
Mr. St. Clemente.
Yes.
Mr. Turk.
Yes.
And Chairman Nansen.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Regular meeting, November 27th, 2017. Eligible voters, Armada, Mertens, O'Donnell, Posh, San Clemente, and Nansen.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell,
I'll second.
second by Mr. San Clemente. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Armato?
Yes.
Mr. Mertens?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Posh?
Yes.
Mr. San Clemente?
Yes.
And Chairman Nansen?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Do we have any vouchers?
No vouchers.
Wow, good. Correspondence?
Nothing other than what was sent to the members by email.
Okay. Any question on correspondence that was sent to the members? Okay.
No.
Resolutions, zoning board attorney, resolution appointing Ron Tropoli Esquire for 2018. Eligible voters, Armada, Mertens, O'Donnell, Paz, San Clemente, Orozco, Nansen. I said that right?
I'll second that motion.
Who was the motion, Mr.
Orozco.
Mertens?
Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Armato?
Yes.
Mr. Mertens?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Posh?
Yes.
Mr. San Clemente?
Yes.
Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
And Chairman Nansen?
Yes.
Resolutions memorialized.
Thank you all.
Welcome aboard, Ron.
Thanks again.
Another, 18, 19 years now?
19, and
Wow.
moving towards 20.
A life sentence, huh?
You'd be out by now.
20 to life.
Yeah.
Okay. Zoning Board Engineer, resolution appointing Jack Mallon, PEPP CME of T&M Associates for 2018. Eligible voters, Armada, Mertens, O'Donnell, Posh, San Clemente, Orozco, and Nansen.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Armada,
I'll second that motion.
seconded by Mr. O'Donnell. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Armato?
Yes.
Mr. Mertens?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Posh?
Yes.
Mr. San Clemente?
Yes.
Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
And Chairman Nansen?
Yes.
Resolutions memorialized.
Well, Jack, I'm not even going to the years there, because I don't think we count that high yet.
More than 25.
Oh, I know that. But it's good to have you back. Get well. Zoning Board Planner, resolution appointing Jennifer Beam, PP, AICP of Leon S. Avakian, Inc., for 2018. Eligible voters, Armada, Mertens, O'Donnell, Posh, San Clemente, Orozco, and Nansen.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Armada,
I'll second that motion.
seconded by Mr. O'Donnell. We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Armato?
Yes.
Mr. Mertens?
Yes.
Mr. Posh?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Posh? Mr. San Clemente?
Yes.
And Chairman Nansen?
Mr. Orozco.
Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
Sorry. And Chairman Nansen?
Yes.
Resolutions memorialized.
Welcome back, Jen. It's a pleasure having you back.
Great to be back.
Thank you. Zoning Board Certified Tree Expert, resolution appointing Sherry Spiros, CTE of CME Associates for 2018. Eligible voters, Armada, Mertens, O'Donnell, Paz, San Clemente, Orozco, and Nansen.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Armada, seconded by Mr. O'Donnell. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Armato?
Yes.
Mr. Mertens?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Posh?
Yes.
Mr. San Clemente?
Yes.
Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
Chairman Nansen?
Yes.
Resolutions memorialized.
Thank you. Case number BA 17-13, Stavola Leasing LLC, resolution granting interpretation. Eligible voters, Armada, Mertens, O'Donnell, Paz, San Clemente, and Nansen. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Mertens,
Second?
seconded by Mr. San Clemente.
Oh.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Armato?
Yes.
Mr. Mertens?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Posh?
Yes.
Mr. San Clemente?
Yes.
And Chairman Nansen?
Yes.
Resolutions memorialized.
Thank you. Case number BA 17-17, Mobile Tech Security Systems LLC, granting a use variance, major site plan, and Woodlands Management approval. Eligible voters, Armada, Mertens, O'Donnell, Posh, San Clemente, Orozco, and Nansen.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Armada. Second by Mr. Orozco. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Armato?
Yes.
Mr. Mertens?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Posh?
Yes.
Mr. San Clemente?
Yes.
Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
And Chairman Nansen.
Yes,
Resolutions memorialized.
thank you. Mr. Tropoli, you have anything for the board?
Mr. Chair, there are some matters involving litigation that need to be discussed tonight in a brief executive session. It doesn't have to be right now,
Okay,
but I would like that opportunity
okay.
at your convenience.
We'll do that after the meeting. We'll go into
Well,
executive session.
Right after the application, right? Okay,
Yeah, after the application.
understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, applicant before the board, case number BA 17-19, Cream Puff Farms LLC, use variance, minor site plan with ancillary bulk variances. Application of Cream Puff Farms LLC is applicant and Sean Donald Hollingsworth as owner seeking a use variance and minor site plan approval with ancillary bulk variances to use subject property as a residence for its employees in connection with a breeding and weaning Australian Labradoodles on premises known as Block 26, Lot 1301 and 3701, 31 Rappalia Road on Blue Trail Road. Expiration date, April 20th, 2018. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
There's a mic in the middle of that table. You might have to
Is it
sit
easier to
for
sit
it.
for picking
Yes,
it?
please.
Okay. Sometimes talk very loud.
There you go.
Once again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jason Ritty. I am with the law firm of Einhorn Harris, Asher, Barbrito, and Frost. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Cream Puff Farms LLC. Mr. Chairman, you did a very nice job summarizing, kind of stole my thunder with the summary. But as it was indicated, we are here for a use variance, minor site plan, and related bulk variances. There is a list of the variances. Run through them just very quickly. We need variances from the provisions of Section 188-69B, which does not allow the applicant's business, in the zone. That's the use variance. We also need a variance from the provisions of Section 188-98.1C, 7F of the land use ordinance, which in other zones that do permit the applicant's proposed use requires all outdoor activities to be a minimum distance of 150 feet from any adjacent residential dwelling. As you'll hear tonight from testimony, the applicant is proposing a small portion of a proposed puppy dog run to be approximately 117 feet from the adjacent dwelling on Lot 14. We also need a variance from the provisions of Section 188-51A, which requires that lots have a minimum of one front yard fronting on a street improved to the township standards or accepted by the township. Applicant's existing developed lot fronts on private road and does not meet those standards. This condition is a pre-existing non-conforming condition, and the applicant's not proposing any changes to the road. From the provisions of Section 188-56, which requires in the ARE 3 zone that only one principal building may be erected on a lot except for related compatible buildings constituting one basic use or operation under one management. This variance was identified in your planner's report. We'll have testimony on that as well. And then there's a variance from the provisions of Section 188-63, which requires a 50-foot buffer separating a non-residential use to a residential use. Again, that was a variance that was identified in the review. Just a preliminary notice was published in the official newspaper, the Tri-Town News, on January 3rd, 2018, and notice was mailed to residents within 200 feet on January 2nd, as per the proof of service and affidavit of publication that was provided to the board. I have two witnesses tonight. The first will be Donald Hollingsworth on behalf of the applicant, and also he's one of the owners. And then we will have the testimony of Mr. Geller, who I believe this board is familiar with. Mr. Geller will provide testimony in two capacities, one as a professional engineer and the other as a professional planner.
You want to bring them forward, and we'll go ahead and swear them in?
Yes, sir.
Right there's Mike. Raise your right hands, please. You swear the testimony you give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Starting with the applicant, sir, can we have your name and spell your last name?
Donald R. Hollingsworth, Hollingsworth.
Very well, thank you.
Michael Geller, Geller.
Witnesses are sworn.
Thank you.
And that takes care of the preliminaries, and unless there's any initial matters that we have to deal with, I'll call my first witness.
Well, I have one question real quick. You said a pre-existing non-conforming use.
Condition.
Of the lot, not fronting on a public street.
That's correct.
You're not creating the lot.
No, but they're talking a pre-existing non-conforming.
The condition that the lot does not front on a public street is existing. The lot
That's-
exists.
that's correct.
That's what he's talking about.
Okay, not the business.
No, he's talking about the
Okay.
lot itself not fronting on a
Okay,
public street.
I just wanted clarification. Okay, sir.
Okay. Okay, Don, are you one of the owners of Cream Puff Farms LLC?
I'm one of four. It's my spouse and our two twin 11-year-old daughters.
Okay. And are you also one of the owners of the property that's the subject of this application?
Yes.
Okay. And when did you purchase the property?
Fall of 2014.
Okay. And how did you begin your search for a piece of property, and for what purpose?
I grew up in Texas on a farm and grew up breeding cattle and dogs and cattle dogs and retrievers. And so we had started this business in Asbury Park, and it grew a little bit more than we thought it was going to, and at that time we needed to find a larger place. So our daughters now attend a school named Ola in Hoboken, and that runs out at 8 years old, at 8th grade. So we identified, we already lived in Monmouth County, we liked the school system, we liked the method in which they can go to different schools, the charter schools, I believe you call them. And then once we were doing our search, we noticed in Howell that there were lots of kennels, dog breeding, just driving around looking for properties. And so I wanted to retire in a place. I'm 57. I want to retire in 2 years when they leave school and move down here. And so this was kind of the perfect place. And when we finally identified it, it was down a little dirt road like I grew up in Texas on the farm. And it was perfect for what I wanted to do with the breeding business.
And what type of condition was the house when you first saw it?
The house was somewhat distressed. It's in a location that I love. There were some, a landscaper had owned it, so there was lots of landscaping items. There was a semi-truck that the back end of that was there, and so there was lots of cleanup. Slightly, I would call it slightly distressed.
Okay. And you made some improvements to the property?
Mainly, we've made improvements to the barn, just repainting it, making it more look like the red barn that I grew up with, on a much smaller scale than what I grew up with.
And explain to the board the type of dogs that are being bred and the benefits of the breed.
I grew up with Labrador retrievers mostly. So, and that's what I had. I bred those. I lived in Pennsylvania until 2005. And at that time, I bred Labrador retrievers, and I was living in New York City in 9/11. And I came down with COPD within 6 months after 9/11. So I became allergic to my dogs. I could no longer breed them. And so I went on allergy medicine until they died in 2009. And then I went looking for new dogs. And I had to find a dog that was hypoallergenic, that didn't cause me to be asthmatic. So that's how I came upon the breed. And then the question, I started down that road.
You touched on some of the benefits of the breed.
Okay, so the Labradors are, no dog actually doesn't shed. Every dog has to shed. Labradoodles shed like a human, so there's much less allergy. Almost all of the puppies that we have go to homes where they are allergy sufferers. Or we also have many that are service dogs, therapy dogs, animal support dogs. We have at least 5 dogs that they read with children in libraries, at least 10 dogs that are regular visitors to hospitals. We have emotional support dogs that fly on planes. It makes it much easier when you have an animal that does not cause people to, become symptomatic with allergies. It's much easier for them to enter those settings.
Okay. Explain for the board, we're here with a use variance, and it was part of the application. Have you been using this property in connection with your business?
Yes.
And approximately how long have you been doing it?
We bought it in the fall of 2014. We had to do some rounding up some landscape items, so we didn't start using it until the spring of 2015. We needed to get the house painted inside and to get it configured in a way that would accept what we were doing.
Okay. And describe for the board exactly how your operations work, because to me, it's a little different than what would typically be either understood as a breeder versus a kennel, and if you could touch on some of those points.
So we don't have kennels per se. We utilize something that we call a guardian program. We have 3 that live with us, and then if we have a puppy that's born in a litter that's exceptional, then we will give that puppy free to a family. I think we have some families here tonight, but they will raise the puppy. The females have no more than 3 litters. I was willing to have 3 children. The 3rd one didn't happen, but that's the most that I would want to have. So they will come to us for a honeymoon. They come for a day, usually 2 days apart, because we do progesterone testing, establish the time, the perfect 3 days, then we breed them 2 days apart. They come for their honeymoon, they go home. They come back to our home in Jersey City, and they are born either in Jersey City or at our next door neighbors or at the guardian home, where they reside for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, until the mom starts giving us indications that it's time to wean. That indication is usually she starts regurgitating her food, which is a bit gross. So we start trying to give them food at around 4 weeks to soften food. At that point, it's either 4 or 5 weeks, and then they will come to the farm and we'll start weaning them. That usually takes about 2 weeks when mom has no interest whatsoever in them. At 6 weeks, we pre-sell all of our puppies so that they're done on the internet. So the deposit list is full, and we offer for the family, if they reside close, for them to come to our place for 30 minutes and visit with the puppies and give us their preference, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, of the puppies that they prefer, and then we match them based on the timing of their deposit. Some of those visits are done via FaceTime because a good number of the families are from New York City. A large number of them are, have suburban homes. They have soccer games with children, and so they prefer to do that via FaceTime or uploading a video to YouTube. So that's about, I'd say, 60% of the deposit holders. And then at 8 weeks, they come back to pick the puppy up. Most of the people come for that 30-minute pickup, and we do regulate it quite strongly because people can start oohing and ahhing over the puppies, and if time can get away from us. So we do the 30 minutes. Everyone knows that they have 30 minutes. And about 90% of those are actual pickups. And the rest of the 10% we will deliver. We won't ship on an airplane, but we will, if someone wants to pay one of our team members to fly on an airplane, we will do that so that they carry them underneath the seat. We have delivered them via Amtrak. We also have delivered them with our truck. At around 8 weeks, I'm still going, right?
That's fine.
Right? Okay.
Keep going.
I can get a little talkative about it. At around 8 weeks, sometimes we'll identify some puppies that are exceptional, and those will be the ones that we will offer to our guardian program. In addition to that, our dogs are in quite demand because it's a breed that needs a bit of genetic diversity, and it's one of the things I love dearly about it is the genetic diversity component of it. And we're certified to one of the few ones in the United States. There's 300 breeders in my Australian Labradoodle Association, and we're one of the few that are authorized to create new lines. So we have sold, and I have pictures here of our dogs that we've sold around the world. We have dogs working in Sweden, at least 5 breeders in Canada, California, Washington, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Florida, that they want our dogs because they're beautiful, I believe. But
Let me just interrupt, if we can. Some
Yeah.
members of the board may not be familiar with what the breed looks like. we do have exhibits. According to the exhibit list, if we can mark this A12.
Okay.
And it's a series of photos, 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. This will give you an idea of type of dog.
Mr. Posh, can you mark one of those and mark mine and then I'll. Okay, now, we've heard enough, basis on that. Can we get into the details of how many dogs are gonna be on premises here
Go ahead.
Sure.
at one time?
So because of the Guardian homes, we rarely have more than 6 at max dogs that would stay at night. That is normally the max. Currently, there's 2 females there that are weaning, and that's the norm. We will have 2 adult dogs. There's also 3 adolescent dogs that are going for testing tomorrow. And during the day, we're picking up, we picked up someone this morning to go to testing at Plumstead. They went straight there and back, but there was one female that was there overnight. So rarely is there dogs that reside there. We have pictures here. We don't necessarily have kennels. The dogs have free rein. So there's usually the moms that are residing there, that are nursing, that are living there. Everyone else lives in Guardian homes.
And you're not a kennel in the sense neighbor can't drop the dog off overnight?
No,
or
no,
for
no,
the weekend?
No, and I don't want signage. I don't want drop-bys. I will not allow anyone to visit unless they have a deposit, mostly because I want to protect my puppies. I love breeding dogs, I love puppies, but I don't want anyone to bring diseases. And someone that's a looky-loo that wants to just drop by and stop by, I am at the most risk from them of anyone, because they've been to another kennel. If that kennel has a problem, then they would be bringing it into me. And so I require that people sanitize their shoes with a 4% bleach solution, that they step in that. I don't want parvo or anything like that on my premises.
And how many times a year does the breeding occur in a number of litters?
Per female or per?
Or just in your operations, I mean, how many litters
I
do you
don't
do?
want more than 2. Well, first of all, we're dealing with Mother Nature, so that is a big component there. But normally, we don't have more than 2 breedings a month.
2 breedings a month?
Right.
And now, whenever they're birthed, they'll be on site, correct?
No, they're birthed either in Jersey City. They stay the first 4 weeks, either at my home in Jersey City and back and forth to Asbury Park, because we go there on weekends, or my next door neighbor's house in Asbury Park. Okay. So the first 4 to 5 weeks, depending on the mom, they stay at those locations. And
Okay.
many times the guardian wants, I don't allow guardians to actually deliver the litters, but many times the guardian, have a lot of homeschooling families, and they like the opportunity to teach their children about the puppies, so that they will welcome the puppies back into their home after I've whelped them in for 2 days, made sure that they're healthy and everything, because I don't want to put them back in the situation if there were to be one to die.
So they don't come to this farm until after 4 weeks?
Correct.
Okay, now, let's go back to my original question. How many dogs, including puppies, will be on this site at one time?
So
Maximum.
we're looking at max 6 females, average of 4, I would say. And normally 2 litters, possibly one that's going home the next weekend. So average litter is 6 puppies. So you're looking at 18 puppies, but some of those are they're weaning, so they're not outside or anything.
I think the chairman's just trying to get the maximum number of animals on site at any given point in time.
At any
So
given
on
point-
any given day, the maximum number of animals.
Sleeping or there during the day? Okay, so
Just on the site,
In
period?
a 24-hour period
in
of
a
time, I don't care if they're
24-hour
eating,
period,
sleeping, whatever.
18 plus 6 is 24.
Okay, now, according to our ordinance, don't we have a limit
Yes,
that's
we
in
do.
the ordinance? I think it's 18.
It's 15.
15?
15.
Apologize, I helped construct that ordinance. It's on Howell.
Okay.
Because we were having a lot of problems. And, but there is a maximum limit, so you would need a variance for that.
Okay.
If you go over that.
Mr. Nansen?
Yes, sir.
For this type of facility, it's not a dog kennel, it's a, dog breeder.
It's still a kennel.
I know that, but it's 15 dogs. A kennel doesn't have a limit of 15 dogs. A
No, I
kennel can have
understand.
more.
That's what defines him as a commercial breeder.
Exactly.
It's 15 or more.
As a breeder.
Yes, that's what the definition is.
I thought it was a limit of 15, because I helped make that ordinance too.
The definition says, commercial breeder, any person, establishment, or facility that controls, possesses, owns, or maintains 15 or more dogs in whole or in part for the purpose of sale of their offspring as companion animals, or any person, facility, or establishment that purchases or breeds for sale more than 3 litters per year, shall be considered a commercial breeder/owner.
Yep.
So that's just the definition of commercial breeder.
Yeah, if I can just interrupt, I mean, I didn't see a limit in terms of that.
Not if you're a commercial breeder.
That's a commercial breeder definition, which they are.
Right.
Right.
That's what I'm
Which is
trying to
part of the use
find.
variance that we're asking.
Correct. I'm just trying to get above that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Matt, do you have any familiarity with that? Because I remember back when McKenna Kingdom was still the attorney here, we had made up the new dog ordinance, and people were breeding dogs, and they were getting summonses for having more than 15.
I haven't experienced that. I mean, as the definition as quoted by Jen is what's in the ordinance now. I don't know of any past history
But
there.
to me, if you're considered to be a commercial breeder, if you have more than 15, what's the limit that you can have?
There is not a limit.
Well, that has to be corrected.
Well,
But there's nothing we can do about that.
I know that,
That's
but
a
I'm
rules
just
committee
bringing it out
deal.
right now. That's a flaw.
Eileen, can you put that down for the Rules Committee?
Yes.
Thank you. So basically, Mr. O'Donnell, this is a commercial breeder. That's what we got to
I
look at.
understand that.
It's a commercial breeder.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think there was a clause in there, it was considered a kennel at that point. Am I correct?
Can you repeat that?
Being a commercial breeder is still considered being a kennel.
Once you fit into the commercial breeder definition, you're required to come for the site plan
Right.
and the variance.
For a kennel.
If needed. So I think that's where any summons was probably issued in the past.
Right.
Was without this process going on.
Correct.
So, Mr. Chairman, are you saying
Yes.
that they have to have the same conditions as a kennel?
Absolutely.
So they have to have runs and
They have to
everything
have
just
the
like a kennel?
runs, they have to meet a kennel specification.
Right. I mean, if that's the case, they have to have a full-fledged kennel.
It has to meet the state
Yeah.
kennel,
Right. The state kennel code.
exactly.
Okay, well, that's different.
Yeah, we'll get into that with Mr. Geller.
Yes.
Okay. You may proceed. What is the hours of operation here?
Your hours of operation?
Hours of operation?
Yes.
We only have puppy visits from 9 to 1, and those are 30 minutes on Saturdays. And other than that, there's no hours of operations.
You have
Our-
on-site staff?
We have a couple that lives there in the house, and they manage the day-to-day activities.
Okay.
But other than those, we have had on Sundays, we've had 2 Jewish couples that observe the Sabbath on Saturday, so they've come on a Sunday. We've made exceptions, but I want a day off, because I work a full-time job in the city. So I want a day off also.
Describe for the board, do you have, what type of deliveries do you have to the property, if any?
The only reoccurring delivery we have is a bi-weekly delivery from Chewy's via Chewy's.com for dog food.
So UPS.
UPS, exactly.
Okay, and you already spoke about the number of visitors so your operation is not, and I think you testified to this before, a drive-by, let's go get a puppy type idea.
No signage I don't want any of that. I don't even put it on the website. No one has my address because that invites drive-bys.
And trash, recycling management, how do you handle that?
We have a company named Waste Management. The trash is comparable to the trash for the family before, I would think, but we don't really use much more trash than the couple uses.
Okay, Mr. Geller will get in. Mr. Geller will get into that, too.
And your, the dog waste disposal?
Most of it is via water hose, via the septic tank.
You realize you're going to have a septic, correct?
They,
For waste.
they've
Mr.
said
Geller.
something about gray water.
Yeah, Mr.
I'm
Geller will
not
cover
technical
that.
like that.
Okay.
Okay, just quickly walk the board through the structures that are there now and how they're used.
Currently, we have a 3-bedroom, 2-bed bath house. That was originally a Sears kit house, and the 3rd bedroom was extended and a bathroom was added years ago. So the 3rd bedroom with the additional bathroom is our office, and it's locked off from the rest of the house. That has a deck that's on there. So we use that as the office and the bathroom for the business, and the couple that is, we call our puppy nannies, they use the 2 other bedrooms and bath and kitchen and utility room and living room.
Okay, so they occupy the house, correct?
Correct.
Do you have a CO in the house? Certificate of occupancy?
When you purchased it, you must have had one.
I haven't, I bought it, I don't know anything other than that.
Okay.
I guess it comes with a CO.
Mr. Geller,
Mr.
Mr.
Geller's
Geller,
indicating
can you
yes.
answer that? You know, whenever you come up, you can deal with that. Okay. Okay.
And the rear structure is, it's 3, I have pictures here. It's basically 3 rooms. There's one large room that runs the extent of the building. It's not a large building. And then there's a reception room where we show the puppies at 6 weeks. So the big room is for the adult dogs, and then there's a smaller puppy weaning room. And then right behind that, we brought in some crushed stone, and then we put astroturf on top of that for the puppy yard. Puppy yard has, a wiggle worm, rock climbing, concrete, gravel, grates, so that we instruct the puppies so that they're used to that if they happen to go to New York. And then currently we're using the front part of the property as a dog run, but we're going to use what we've proposed in the plan here, is that the larger dog run be behind a 6-foot privacy hedge. And so you won't really see the dogs behind at all from the road. And then there's a puppy yard for the adolescents, and it's on a plan that we have here.
I'm going to hand out Exhibit A13, which is a series of 8 photos. This is just what Don's been talking about in terms of what the property looks like, the yard, the structures. There's a general layout, floor plan. Yeah, we did. We touched it up. Any other licensing plans?
Now, right?
Yeah, we covered, I got rid of that. The stuff that Mike will cover. And while the board's looking at the photos, you touched briefly on it, some of your dogs become therapy dogs. Is there an approximate percentage of your dogs that go on to be therapy dogs?
I'd put the percentage at between 15 and 20%. Emotional support dogs, service dogs, therapy dogs. We have quite a number of parents that come seeking, parents do that. I mean, they're seeking companions for their children, but that have been diagnosed with ADHD and things like that, the puppy, I mean, when I grew up, you just ran around the block a little bit, but these days, the puppy seems to calm them down.
In terms of veterinarian services, how's that handled?
We use Plumstead and Cream Ridge, Dr. Petrano, and he's a really, really great, and he does, I would say now he does probably at least 40% of our actual breedings, because the nature of the size of the dogs, sometimes they're not compatible for a honeymoon, natural honeymoon. So, and sometimes it's just easier to arrange and schedule, because you don't have to wait for a little bit of hanky-panky before it. That way you can just get in and get it done.
And it's correct that you do no retail sales of dog products from the
No,
site?
no.
And you don't do any breeding of dogs for research?
No,
You do grooming?
no. I recommend a grooming product, that's it.
No, but do you do the
No,
grooming?
we don't have the facilities for that, nor do I want to do it.
Okay.
I think that's all the questions I have for this witness, unless the board has any follow-up questions.
I want to go to my professionals first, and then we'll go to the board. Mr. Mallon?
Yeah, first question. The people who live in the house, are they considered your employees?
Yes,
They are.
yes.
So they're
They're
basically,
W-2 employees.
it's basically a place of business, but they reside there.
Yes.
They're full-time employees, or they have other jobs?
Well, it's a couple, and Kiki is a full-time employee, and her boyfriend is, he's a master plumber training. He's going to take that test soon. So he has a full-time plumbing job that is local here somewhere.
All right. How often do you have visitors come? They just come during the visiting hours, which would be 9 to 1, you said? And
9 to
then-
1 is the normal. It's on Saturdays, and that's the normal. As far as how often do we have, I probably go out there on Sunday just to look at the dogs, almost every Sunday, and I'm there most Saturdays.
All your visits are pre-arranged, though, is that
They're all prearranged. We don't have anyone just show up.
Okay. So the people would come mainly on Saturday, then?
Mainly on Saturday.
Unless they
correct.
call for an appointment during the week, you mean?
No, they
No,
can't
just
have
Saturday.
I say no to that. We do have, a honeymoon, so we might, we have a full-time driver, so she drives the dogs all around, because we have guardians in Westchester, New York, we have some upstate New Jersey, we have some down by Atlantic City, and that's her full-time job, to pick up and arrange a honeymoon. So that might happen on a Wednesday, that
Okay.
she would be bringing those.
Your deliveries, how is the dog food delivered? What type of a vehicle?
UPS?
How comes UPS?
Yes.
There's sufficient area there for the UPS to turn around?
We have a circular driveway,
Okay.
so I built a landscaping, a circular, and so they just drive around it.
Can you show me on the plans where that
Yeah,
driveway is? Because I don't see it.
I have a picture in there, if that makes any sense. You can,
Well, we really needed to see it on the plan.
okay.
The plan looks like it's a
It's right
T.
here, it's that circle right there. Does that make sense? Can we see it?
What am I looking at? I don't
Oh.
see it.
Oh,
That's the circle right there.
the decorative wall, is that what
Yeah,
you're
the
talking about?
decorative wall, exactly, that's what it's labeled. It's just stacked stone in a circle with plants in the middle.
Okay. I don't have any further questions right now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Ms. Beam?
I have a couple questions. Are those parking spaces in the back by the barn?
Are those parking spaces?
That's what those numbers
I
are.
mean,
Mike, you got it?
Those
it
are
says
two
19
slots?
foot typical.
Wood fence, it says wood fence.
Mr. Gellers can answer that question, if we can defer that.
Okay.
So I guess my question is, do people drive into the site and drive to the back of the property?
Mostly they will drive and they'll park in front of, you see the exterior shed up if you see straight up from the circle, Because
Yeah.
we only have about one at a time, sometimes there may be two. So they normally would park in front of there and then just pull on around after they're finished.
Okay. I don't have any other questions of this witness.
Any questions from the board, this witness?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm not familiar with this breed of dog. Is it a loud dog, noisy, very quiet type of dog?
It's more of a quiet dog. The smaller ones do bark a little bit more because they do come in the same sizes as a poodle, so miniature to standard. Most of our dogs are mediums. We haven't had, that I know of, any complaint from neighbors about noise. But I don't consider them a barky breed like a yappy little poodle or something like that.
Now, you also said at one time there could be up to 24 dogs there. Where do you keep them during the day and at night?
Should I use this to show you, or do
Yeah,
you want to look at it
you
in
can
your?
point it up there.
Either one. I guess the best thing would, if we could look at this.
Oh, yeah, that's
Exhibit A13.
So the second page, so any dog that's more than 6 weeks old, there is a small, we like to keep the area inside small so that they learn to go pee and poo outside. So they'll have a small area about double the size of this desk that they sleep in, and it's heated and air conditioned during the winter. And then they have a puppy door that's right here, and then they have this area to play in.
Now, how many puppies will be in there at one time?
In this yard,
Yes,
at most 12, normally around 8.
and they will be sleeping all in that house together.
Yes, they sleep together in about double this size as the table. Because if we don't keep it small, then they will tend to poo and pee. So we're teaching them how to go outside, starting from 6 to 8 weeks.
At what time would they go out? Is it sunrise? Is there a specific time?
We close up and turn on music at 11 o'clock at night, and then normally we're out there about 7.
What do you mean, turn on music?
We try to teach them so that once they go to their family, they can do the same thing. So we tell all of our puppy buyers to put them in their crates. We try to mimic crate training, so that they will put their puppy in the crate at 11 o'clock, and that they will wake up at 6, and that they put the music on at 11, and they turn it off at 6. And that's Pavlov's theory of this is how we're going to train them to sleep. So they're used to it already before they go
Now,
home.
you're not playing heavy metal music with them?
No, we're playing jazz or classical music.
So you're playing that at 11 o'clock at night,
Very low.
and that's on all night? Or it's just when you
It's
you
on
feel
its-
as though they're going to sleep?
It's on inside of the barn.
Inside of that barn, next to that purple?
No, that's not the barn. The
No,
barn
this
is,
the barn.
that's just a little shed that was left over from before.
No, this is not it. That's the
That's it,
sh-
that's what he's talking about. That's what he-
building do these puppies sleep?
That's what, this one right
Was
here.
it page 2?
Page 2,
No,
page
it's not.
2.
So if you go, that's the picture of it. If you go to page 4, I gotta put on my glasses for this. If you look at the barn area and you see the words puppy weaning,
Yeah.
Okay.
and then, so that's where the weaning area is, and they'll use the AstroTurf puppy play area right behind there.
Okay.
In terms of the music, how loud do you put that on, or what would you?
Like level 3, it's just to get them used to, like, music means it's time to go to sleep.
You're not blaring it?
No,
up?
there's no, you
That's-
can't even hear it, you can't even hear it on the, there's a deck on the side of the house, you can't even hear it there.
Okay, so that's the pup. Now, where about the adolescents and the adults? Where do they go at night?
Well, they also go to bed at 11 and don't get up until 7, so they go inside there.
In
Inside
the
the
big
barn.
door, the big dog area?
In the big dog area, right, and if you look at the next page, there's 4 of those 4x8s, and depending on the personalities of the dog, and you'll see the puppy door there, or the doggy door there, So during the day, that's open, and at night, it's closed. And depending on the makeup, they will go into the individuals, but mostly they just stay in the whole place together.
And how many adult dogs will there be?
There's normally 2, and sometimes, like Sunday night, there were 3. And during the day, the numbers will go up if we have a honeymoon or a mating.
So do
No,
you
did
have,
say 6 females. You did say 6 females at one time.
I'm sorry?
You did say 6 females at one time. Is that-
Max.
Max, 6.
Max.
So 6 females will fit in that barn, in that big dog area?
No, not at night, during the day.
Where do they go at night?
They leave. So if a female is coming for a breeding, she normally almost always goes back during the day. She doesn't stay there at night.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple
Yes,
of
sir.
quick questions.
let Mr. say.
Oh, I thought he was finished.
No, I'm finished. Go
Oh,
ahead.
you
Go
are?
ahead.
Okay.
Okay, now, Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you.
I saw in the paperwork you had a summons in August of 2017, is that correct?
Correct.
And what was it for?
I don't know the technical nature, I don't know the
was that
exact.
for
Mr.
disturbing-
Howard, you want to elaborate on that?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
The summons, what was the summons for?
So we had received a complaint from the clerk's office. It was ultimately just, it reiterated to us that complaint was received that a kennel was being operated. We immediately took it over from code enforcement, did an inspection. We observed that there was some kind of commercial dog activity going on, and we issued the violation in August. We had spoken with, not the property owner, it's the gentleman actually in the audience, to learn a little bit more about the business. Maybe my code enforcement officer spoke with you directly, I'm not sure. And ultimately, that's where we required them to either remove the facility all outright or to come here for the variance.
Okay, so that's when they received notification.
Yes.
Notification
And-
they were in violation.
And it was a violation letter, not a summons.
And one other question, how many neighbors do you have within 150 feet of you? Is any within 150 feet or
Just the
close
one,
by?
this one house right over there.
So you have one neighbor within 150 feet?
Correct.
Yes, sir, we'll get to public in a little
You
bit.
could testify shortly. Okay, so you have one house within
One house,
150 feet?
correct.
Okay, that's all I have.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm a farmer. I'm one of the only farmers on the board. And not too many of us left here in Howell. I bought my farm 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago. I bought my farm next to a kennel, so I knew I had a kennel right next door. If you were a homeowner, I'm just asking this, if you were a homeowner and somebody come in and set up this right next door to you, you had a house, you've been there for a long time, how would you feel about that?
I love dogs, so
No, I know.
as long as they were being responsible about what they were doing, and respectful of me, I would be okay with it. I believe we've spoken to the owners around. There's one owner that is not pleased with it, and all the other owners were very affirmative of that. I think that's a pretty good ratio. I'm sorry that one is upset. And I'm sure they're going to speak more about that tonight. But I believe that we're very responsible. I think we're ethical. We're not a puppy mill. I abhor puppy mills. I would never do that to a dog. I think that we provide a service, and I do consider it a service that having a dog that I can actually be around and not spending the rest of my life without a dog because I happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, I think is a service to people. And if you can't have a dog, and that's the only way you can by having one of ours, I think we provide that wonderful service to them.
Okay, that's understandable, but I want you to also understand where the board, the decision that we have to make.
I do
Because
understand.
a variance goes with the land, with the property. We grant a variance here. 2 years from now, you decide you don't want to do that anymore, you sell the property, well, it has a variance. And the type of variance that you're requesting is going to be a kennel variance. And it could very easily turn into a full-blown breeder's kennel at that time, because that's what we're discussing right now.
Correct.
That's what we have to kind of look at. Mr. Greller will come up and testify as far as the planning and the engineering, but, you know, you're in the hot seat right now.
I
so.
understand.
But is there any other questions from the board of this witness?
What's the size of the property?
6.5 acres.
6.5 acres?
Yeah, it's the total size. I believe that you guys have requested that we combine those. It's actually 2 lots. The one and then the small entrance to the other area.
But that doesn't change the neighbor, he's still within the 150 feet.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
What is usable property, not counting the wetlands? Do you know that, or do we need to wait for Mr. Geller?
I think that's probably
Okay.
Mr. Geller.
Okay.
I have one question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mertens.
What type of buffer is around the property, especially where all this activity is taking place?
There's one house that's affected that is within 150, and she is very happy with the way that we run things. The other, I don't know, Mr. Geller will tell you how far from the other houses, but the only other one that we abut right next to, as far as like dogs that would be right next to, there's a series of small houses that are along Maxim Southern that I call them row houses, and it's a long, deep lot. So those houses are way to the front. I mean, right where we are, there's nothing but woods. The only thing that's really close to us, other than the house, that interact with the dogs, there's a horse farm, Serenity Farms, which is, there's 4 very thin lots, and then a large portion of our land abuts to Serenity Farms horse farm.
Okay. I might defer to the engineer, because I just was, as far as what kind of screening it's going to be.
Yeah, just one more question.
Sure.
Are you considering or would be considering breeding any other dogs besides the Labradoodles?
No, I can't. I could only breed a hypoallergenic dog. No.
Mr. Mallon, or Mr. Tropley, in this variance, can we specify strictly breed? If we were to do that, or does that not count? Can we make that?
I think, so any relief on the use that you would give them would be to breed dogs. I don't
Okay.
know that you can specify what type of dog, and I don't know, I mean, obviously, Mr. Geller has to give his testimony.
Right.
But I would assume that the testimony is not breed dependent as opposed to use dependent, so I think that would be very difficult.
Okay.
I would be fine with that limitation, though.
No,
I don't
I
know
know,
if it's-
but we got to look at the variance.
Okay.
You know, if we grant a variance, it's got to be what the ordinance is and what the law lets us grant the variance for.
Understood.
And if we can't restrict, I don't, you know, that's why I'm asking. So, okay.
That's it, thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
Yes, I have a question, but it's
Okay.
not to
Okay.
the applicant, it's to you and the professionals.
Okay.
In a situation like this, we're not talking about per se a dog breeding place that has under 15 dogs. We're talking about a dog breeding place that has more than 15 dogs. And if it does, it comes under commercial, and then it comes under a full-fledged kennel. So I don't know if the applicant has any idea what he has to do to have a full-fledged kennel. That's entirely different than
Well,
what
we'll
we're
let
talking
Mr.
about.
Greller, that's something Mr. Geller can testify to, and then we can get into those questions to him, you know, as
Okay,
far as
fine, I
that.
just want him to realize
But
what's involved.
I also, you bring up a good point, is 15 and under dogs. You know, if you're 15, you're not considered a commercial kennel.
That's correct.
But you could get a variance for 15 and under and not be a commercial kennel. But if the variance is for a commercial kennel, that variance goes with the property, so that's gonna be a commercial use. So they're gonna be allowed to have, we don't know how many dogs.
But if he keeps it to under 15, he doesn't need a variance.
Yes,
It's a
he,
hobby.
yes, he does.
No,
I
he
breed more
doesn't.
than 3 litters, so.
Yes,
If
he
you
breeds-
have more than 15, it's entirely different. If you have
Okay.
under 15, you don't need a variance.
yes, he
Now,
would.
we went through this, and 15 was the limit, and they
He-
couldn't give a ticket for it.
No,
It's for somebody breeding as a hobby.
as a hobby, he's not a hobby, period.
Well, I'm saying he could be a hobby. I'm not saying he is one, or
He
wants
can't
to be.
He sells dogs, that's
Well,
not a
if-
hobby.
Then he has to have a full-fledged kennel,
That's what we're
and you're
deciding
talking about
here.
hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I don't think this applicant is looking at it that way.
I will say that we've met with the animal control officer, and he gave us positive feedback that we have everything that we need for what we're doing. He's concerned that we have heat, he's concerned that we have running water in our facilities, running hot water, that there's a place to bathe the dogs, that there's adequate sleeping areas, that there's adequate dog runs, and we were told that we were fine, and what we needed was a variance.
But see, that's what the animal control. Have you reached out to Monmouth County Health, Department of Health?
I believe that that's who came. He came and we met with him. The only thing that was a slight sticking point was the sewer, as you mentioned. And the decision was that we needed a gray water system, because the only thing that we really having coming from the barn is the sink, which is going to have some fecal matter in there, so he wanted to have a gray water system, and that is proposed and listed on the plans there.
Now, with the outside feces, whenever they go on the AstroTurf, what happens with that?
There's 12 inches of crushed stone, and that is normally, the rain comes, we spray it down each day, and then there's no smell. We use something called Weissy wash, which is it's a decontaminant, but it's basically a very small hydrogen peroxide.
But, Mr. Chairman, that
But
doesn't
that-
meet the code.
No,
You
it
have to have a
doesn't.
separate septic tank that all goes into,
That
to
all
meet
has
the
to
health
be
code.
caught under health.
under a kennel. You have to have
Mr. Geller,
runs.
Mr. Geller can speak to that. At that time, we can get into that, Mr. O'Donnell.
Okay.
Any other questions of this witness? We all good? Professionals? Okay, at this time, I want to take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll get Mr. Geller up there. Okay? Hey, Eileen.
The zoning board will now reconvene.
Okay, Mr. Geller, do you mind giving us your qualifications, please?
Sure.
I know you've been before the board many a times, but just for the record,
I'm Michael Geller, Geller. I'm a professional engineer since 1980, a professional planner since 1983. I'm also a certified municipal engineer since 1991. I have testified before this board and scores of boards throughout the state as an engineer and a planner for private sector clients. I've also served municipalities as their board engineer and planner, the latest full-time appointment being in Lacey Township. I was there for 18 years, and in the early 1980s, I was the full-time in-house township engineer for Howell Township, and this board's engineer in 1983.
education, please.
I graduated from Stevens Institute of Technology in 1975.
We accept your credentials.
Thank you. I do have a couple of exhibits. I have a photo exhibit I'd like to give out that will show the property and the area around it, if I may.
Okay.
I have copies for each of the board members. That would be
A14?
A14. I'll give, I have 12 copies. I think I'm short. There's 8 up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I only have 3 left.
You can use this one
Eileen,
if you want.
did you get that one I had right here?
You need it?
No.
I'll let you know.
You got the,
Give me the cue. All right, thanks very much.
what is this photo?
First, what I'd like to do is describe the property, so we get an idea of where we are and the location of things. This, as Don Hollingsworth described, is actually two tax lots. One, and I should mark another exhibit. I think you want to mark this. I colored an area on this rendering.
Yes, sir.
So you want me to mark that, or?
Yeah, we'll mark it.
A15.
A15 is a copy of the site plan, a variance plan dated November 15th, 2017, upon which, A15, an area has been colored yellow, and that yellow area represents the amount of one of the dog runs that encroaches into that 150-foot buffer. That's the degree of that variance. So I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, as we said, this is composed of two different tax lots. Tax lot 13.01, on the A15, you'll see that 13.01 is the property with the dwelling and the structures that Mr. Hollingsworth described fronting on Rapelier Road. That is 1301. And another part is lot 37.01. That's a larger rear appendage to the property that does not have road frontage, and they're connected by about a 25-foot length of common property line. They were purchased at the same time by the same owners, but they're two separate tax lots, and I think one of your reports, the engineer would like to see it consolidated, and the applicant agrees to consolidate the two lots.
Okay.
Lot 1301 is currently developed with the residential use, has an address of 31 Rapelier Road, has an area of 0.83 acres, about 36,025 square feet, and that is essentially the area in which the operation that's proposed will occur. Lot 3701 is, as I said, an undeveloped lot, has no direct access to any street or road or driveway. It's encumbered by a large amount of wetlands, according to the New Jersey GOEB, the New Jersey GIS, and those wetlands have no impact on the Lot 1301 portion of the property. Consolidated, the lots would contain 6.5 acres. Lot 1301 is on the north side of Rapelier Road. It's about 625 feet east of Maxim Southard Road. Maxim Southard Road is an improved township street. Rapelier Road is signed as a street. You'll see a street sign, but it is really a 30-foot wide utility and access easement, and that's how it's called out on the tax maps. It actually crosses over Lot 13.01, Lot 15.01, and continues southerly across Lot 17. So it is on the tax map as an access easement. There are 8 different properties that are serviced for access by that road. The road is privately maintained, and it's not dedicated to the township. It's very similar to a lot of undedicated streets that exist in Howell Township. For a few, Blue Trail Road off of Alexander Avenue is an unnamed, unimproved street. Stony Brook Trail, if you're familiar with that, off of Fort Plains Road, has dwellings on it. It's east of Fort Plains Road. It's north of Sunnyside Road. If you're familiar with Bannon Meadow Lane, is another unimproved street that has houses on it. It's off of Fort Plains Road, south of Burgerville Road. Jerry's Lane is in the same neighborhood, another unimproved, undedicated street. Drift Road is another street between Route 9 and Sunnyside Road. Evans Lane, also known as Stonehill Road, it's south of Casino Drive, opposite Ketchum Road. And another one is Lakeview Road, which is off of Lanes Mill Road near Lake Louise. And those are a few that I personally have knowledge of. The Township Engineer's Office maintains a complete list of all the streets and whether they're dedicated, private, who maintains them, and that's dedicated by the Engineer's Office. So the Rapelier Road situation is not uncommon to the township for having developed properties fronting on it, and the maintenance responsibilities up to the private owners of that road, private properties that front on that road. This site is in the ARE3, that's the Agricultural Rural Estate Zone. ARE3 zoning requires a minimum lot area of 3 acres. Once consolidated, the total area of the lot will meet that requirement of 3 acres. As I said, Lot 1301 is currently developed with a 1-story frame dwelling. That's situated close to the road. I'm looking at the rendering A15, and that shows a large inset that shows actually Lot 1301. That dwelling is very close to the road, and it's a 1-story dwelling, a 3-bedroom dwelling. The second 1-story building is to the north of that. That's in the rear portion. In the pictures that I passed out and the other pictures you've seen, that's the red structure in the back. That's where the actual dog breeding and residency occurs. There's also a paved, I'll point to this, but there's a paved driveway. It's partially paved, partially stone. It's off of Rapulay Road. It leads access to a area for parking with a circular circulation route. And there's parking parallel to it on one side and to the easterly side. And on the westerly side, there are perpendicular spaces off that road. That area is gravel, and it exists as it is. There is approximately 18 feet between, there's 2 trees that define the edge of the driveway near Rapulay Road. That's the widest part of the driveway. It serves as 2-way functioning. It's suitable for this particular site. Although a portion of the site is Lot 3701, it's not a portion that's really proposed for anything in this application other than meeting area and having the wetlands on that. There's really not much that can be done with it. I'd like to describe the vicinity of the property. The site is currently served by a potable well that's situated under the rear right corner of the dwelling, and there's a septic disposal system that's situated in the westerly portion of the property. A review of the vicinity. If you look at the map on your plans, that would be the inset on the lower right portion. Shows the property and the 200-foot radius around it. I'll go clockwise from the north. To the north is Lot 12. Lot 12 is a long, narrow property, fronts on Maxim Southern Road. The house on that property, it's residential. The house on that property is very close to the road. And as I said, the property is very long. It's probably over 800 feet in length. And the rear property is currently undeveloped.
Mike, can you show me on these plans where the well is again?
The well is under the house in the rear right corner. That would be the northeasterly corner of the dwelling.
And how far away is that from the septic?
The existing septic or the proposed? Well, the existing, I don't know exactly where that septic is, but the proposed gray water system will be greater than 100 feet.
You know how to location for it?
The existing, that
You
work,
didn't know where that was, right?
Excuse me?
You didn't know where it was?
I don't know exactly. It's in the field in the westerly portion of the site. I believe it's over 100 feet, but I'm not sure. That's an existing feature. I'll get to that in a minute, though, that when we talk about the health department.
Yeah.
Okay. As we go around the site, east of the site is Lot 24.02. It's known as 130 Rapulay Court. That is or was formerly a mixed use. It has a sign in front of it that's known as Albart Inc. My understanding, it was a landscape contractor at one time. They also did some environmental remediation, and I believe they, as according to their Google search, they're maybe closed now, but at one time they were a mixed use.
What's going on that property now?
There's still a residence there.
There's still a residence. There's no business being run out of there, is there?
I don't know. It's still signed as Albart Inc. So it says 130 Kroll, Albart
Right.
Inc.
And that's around that curve, correct?
That is on the, if you come down Rapulay Road, go straight up the driveway at the end of Rapulay Road, that's the driveway to that property.
Okay, so it goes straight in.
Goes
Okay.
straight in. A little bit further to the southeast of the property is Lot 26.02. It's known as 118 Rapulay Road. It is a relatively large property, and it has a dwelling on it, residence pretty much in the middle of the property. There's a dwelling. It has a long driveway and a dwelling. Then a little bit also southeast is Lot 23. That's known as number 45 Rapulay Road, and that's a residential use. That's an awkwardly shaped property you see has a triangular shape to it. South of the site, across from the Rapulay Road, is lot 15.01. That is number 42 Rapulay Road. That is a mixed use. There is currently an excavating business with a lot of equipment in the yard and a residence on that property. I believe that's the person who's predominantly responsible and takes care of the road. He's, my understanding from my client, he's a good guy. Immediately west of the site is lot 14. That's the property that has the dwelling on it. That's within 150 feet of the proposed use. That's known as 23 Rapulay Road, and it's a residential property. It's relatively small in size, and it's about 46 feet from the westerly line of that property to the dwelling. So the westerly property line of our property to the dwelling is about 46 feet. West of the rear portion of lot 1301 is, strike that. North of lot 14 is the very rear portion of lot 1301, which is another one of those long lots that Mr. Hollingsworth referred to as row housing. It's a long lot. The house is very close to the corner of Rapulay and Maxim Southern Road, and that's just the very rear back of it, and it's undeveloped. In general, the vicinity along Rapulay Road is best described as it's private. It's a private area, and there's a number, as I said, there's 8 different properties that use it for access and utility service. I would just like to go through quickly, if I may, the photo exhibit I just passed out.
Okay, before you run there, let's go to lot 37.
Lot 3701,
Is that an existing farm?
37,
37.
where am I?
It'd be totally north of 1301.
Yes, that's a part of a farm.
Okay, do you have ample room? You just answer it for the record, but do you have ample room for a farmland buffer there?
It would all be wetlands, but that can be established as a farmland buffer.
Okay.
We have no problem with that.
Okay, what about the buffers around a commercial site?
I'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
Let me go through the exhibits, if I may. The photo exhibit. Matt, on page 2 of the photo exhibit, the top photo shows Rapulay Road. You can see it's relatively improved. It's graded regularly. It has a width of about, I forget what the width is. I should measure that. Width is about, it's wrong scale. Width is about 20 feet, more or less. That shows the road. The bottom picture on page 2 shows the dwelling on subject lot 14 in the background, the dwelling on the site, and then the dwelling on lot 14 is in the background. Thank you. On the top of page 3, you see I'm in the, that shows the rear building. That's the red building. That's where all the dog breeding. There's the door for the puppy run out there. And then that building is where the dog breeding, the sleeping, the washing machine is located in that building. And that's where it happens. The bottom picture shows the existing driveway. The distance from tree to tree is about 18 feet. As you look at the next picture on the top of the next page.
Before you go to the next page, can you back up to the red barn?
Yeah.
The rear building? What is that right on the right?
That?
That.
Oh, that's a trailer it's not going to be there forever. I call it the Partridge Family trailer. It has like a psychedelic painting to it, but I don't think that's full-time on the property.
It's a travel trailer.
It's a travel trailer. It's going to be,
Is it used in the business, or is it used,
no,
you know,
it's not anything to do with the business.
okay, so that's just okay,
Just there for the time being.
okay.
Sorry, next. Thank you. The top of page 4 shows the parking area, and you can see that's my car. There's cars that can park parallel right near the dwelling. Further in the back, you can see the trailer. That's in one of the 3 spaces delineated back by the rear building. And you can see this area to the right of it, lends itself to parallel parking. And there's the stone circular feature that Mr. Hollingsworth described, and the clockwise movement around it permits circulation that's appropriate and needed for this type of site. It's not a very high-traffic site. As you heard, there's very infrequent visits, and we think it's appropriate for this use. Bottom of page 4 shows the rear yard taken from the parking lot. You can see the red building, the kennel operation on the right. You can see the dwelling on the left, and in the distance is the dwelling on Lot 14. There's a white vinyl fence that demarcates the property line between the subject site and the dwelling on Lot 14.
Michael, do you know whose fence that is?
That's the Lot 14's fence. Top of page 5 shows the same area, just taken from the westerly portion of the property, looking over the fence, and you see the house a little closer and the white vinyl fence. Bottom of that page is the driveway through the mixed use I described on Lot 2402. That's the very dead end, the very end of Rapulay Road if you go straight in from Maxim Southern Road. And then the next picture on the top of page 6 shows the sign I described. It reads, "Private property, no entry, Rapulay Court," which is one of the streets on the township's list of private streets. And it's known as 130 Kroll Albard, Inc. And then the bottom of page 6 shows the mixed use that's on Lot 1501. You can see the residence on the left side. There's an accessory structure, there's some outside storage. And then the top of page 7 shows the same property, mixed use. That's the barn, the boat, and then that's one of his trucks. And that describes the vicinity and the site. Picture's worth 1,000 words. I'm sure you'd rather look at them than hear me talk. So from there, we'll go to what the proposed use calls for. Proposed use, you heard from Mr. Hollingsworth, the existing rear building essentially would be used for the Australian Labradoodle dog breeding and the weaning operation as described by the applicant. There would be the continued use of the bedroom, of the front dwelling. That's a 3-bedroom dwelling. That would be for the resident caretakers. One of the bedrooms has been turned into an office, so there's actually going to be a 2-bedroom dwelling there. And
While we're talking about that, do the owners ever anticipate on living there on this site?
well, I'm not the right person to ask that.
In 2 years, when the girls
Come,
graduate,
come to the mic if you don't mind.
We're hoping to move there. The girls finish their 8th grade at their charter school in Hoboken, and at that point we'll move. That's why we chose this location. One of them is very artistic, so Howell has an artist, in my understanding, is an art high school magnet, and the other one wants to go to high tech in Freehold. So it fit into our design for life that they would go to those schools.
Now, at that point, whenever you move, will you be taking residence in the resident?
Yes.
And your caretakers that are there now, are you going to have additional for,
At that point, I'll be retired.
okay, so there's no additional employees going to?
There won't need to be because I'll be doing, I'll be doing everything at that point.
Okay, and then then at that point, if you're doing everything and your Jersey City is closed down, and then your Asbury Park is done, so now everything will be moved to this location, correct?
No, my next door neighbor in Asbury Park will continue to birth the litters. And we're going to go in between Asbury Park. Asbury Park, we hope that will be a summer rental. So it's a large house there that we hope to do summer rentals there.
Okay. And so Newark or Jersey City will be closed, correct?
That's going to get sold in 2 years.
Okay, now, the Jersey City, those dogs, you breed there, correct?
And we birth there. We don't ever breed there.
Yeah, okay, you birth there.
Well, correct.
So you'll be birthing on this site what you're doing in Jersey City, correct?
If we're living there full-time, we'll be going back and forth. We're going to keep Asbury Park as our home because it's a bigger house, so it allows for more there. And we'll only rent that out during the summer when we're traveling.
Okay. Now,
I think what he's trying to get from you is
Am I-
if you anticipate birthing dogs at any point in time ever on this site, they need to know.
Okay. I don't,
He's trying to get worst-case scenario, so he understands exactly what could potentially be put on this property. Otherwise, if you put so many restrictions, assuming they act favorably, 2 years from now, we're gonna see you back here.
Understood.
So he's trying to get you to give him everything that could potentially happen on this site.
I'm not going to rule out that there would never be a birthing that happens there, because that can happen. I could be bringing a mom out, and she could start giving birth right there. I've had them deliver in the back of my van. My daughters have delivered them there, so I can't know for sure at
No,
that point.
What I'm saying, where are the dogs from Jersey City gonna start? You're birthing there, correct?
Correct.
Okay, where are those dogs, whenever you leave there, you sell that, where are those dogs gonna be birthed then?
Most likely in Asbury Park. I'm walking a little bit of a fine line because we want to go to Howell schools, but we're going to keep our Asbury Park residents. So we'll still have 2 homes, but I want my children to go to Howell schools. So
Okay, I'm just trying to get the full aspect of the site. Okay, now, you made, whenever you're staying in Asbury Park, who's gonna be staying on site here?
I most likely will be staying there. I'm the farm guy. Sean does not like the farm as much as me, so I will be staying there most likely every night.
Okay, now, when you're traveling, will you have people come in?
I will hire a dog sitter,
Okay, it's gonna come in and they would.
and they will
stay there.
live there. Like we hire that for Jersey
No,
City now.
will they just stay there, or will they be living there?
They'll stay there. If we travel for 2 weeks, they would stay there for 2 weeks. No, they
Okay.
wouldn't be living there.
Okay, I just want to clear that. You know, this is not, this is going to be your residence only whenever you do come in.
That's my hope.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Gill.
Thank you. I hope you now understand the use of the dwelling and the back building. To the north of the back building, there currently is one dog run between the back building and the shed that's situated in the northeasterly portion. That currently is used as a dog run, mainly for the adolescent dogs, the little bit bigger dogs. The puppies are just outside. They need a very small space, and they're more outside to the east of the barn. We do propose one additional dog run, and a portion of that dog run is colored yellow, and that's approximately 25 feet in width and 33 feet in length, about 825 square feet. And that's the amount that encroaches that 100-foot distance from the adjacent dwelling. The adjacent dwelling requires 150 feet according to your commercial dog breeding ordinance. 150 feet is required from any adjacent dwelling to any part of the operation. And that dog run is the part of the operation that is encroaching that 150 feet. Again, that's going to be a puppy dog run, so it's not going to be full-grown dogs. They're not going to have the noise of full-grown or adolescent dogs. So I think we could rest our mind with that, and I'll address that variance in just a moment.
Now, that dog run, what will that be compromised of? What will they be built of?
I think they talk about the stone with the turf over
AstroTurf
it.
and
Yeah.
everything? The whole thing?
Yes, right?
No, sir.
Don can answer that better.
Currently, under the puppy dog run that's behind the fence, it's gravel, and with the 6-foot horse fence. So I'll bring in gravel and gravel that. It's behind a 6-foot privacy hedge, so you won't really see you won't see the dogs from the road. Currently, we are using the front, so you can see the dogs as you go down the road.
Okay.
So it'll be gravel surface.
Gravel with a 6-foot horse fence.
That, you know, will they be using the bathroom in there?
Yes.
Okay, what happens with the feces?
We have a pooper scooper, and we have, if you, he doesn't list out the vegetable garden, but one on yours in front is the vegetable garden, and we use it and turn it into the soil for fertilizer. Compost.
I don't think you can do that. You're gonna have to look at the statute and the law, you know, how it's written. But I don't think you can do that. You have to actually have a composting. It has to be composted before you can turn it in, especially if you're eating those vegetables.
Okay.
You know, that's just
We'll
common
scoop it up
sense.
and put it in a compost or put it into the gray water system at that point.
Or garbage.
Well, speaking of the gray water, is there gonna be a septic tank?
Yes, I'll get that in a minute. Yeah.
Okay.
That was my next point,
Thank
actually.
you.
Actually, before we get off this top,
Yes.
not for you. So, Mike, you keep referring to this 150-foot standard. I just want to be abundantly clear. This use is not permitted, period. That 150 feet is in our conditional use standards where a commercial breeder and kennel would be permitted in certain zones.
Yeah.
This is not one of those zones. So you can use that as a general guide, but that standard does not apply to this application.
I meant it as a guide, Jennifer. We
Because
do
you called
acknowledge
it out as a variance on your plans. That's why I'm bringing it up.
the variance.
You don't need a conditional use variance because you're not a conditional use.
okay.
You're not permitted, so you need a D1 variance.
Okay. So that aspect of the use is part of our application. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
sir.
Have you checked with the health ordinances as far as when you have runs? My understanding is that the runs are concrete and they flow down into a gutter and everything goes down the gutter into a pipe into the septic tank. That's what I think code is. I'm not positive. I'm not telling you.
You're correct.
But you need to know all these things.
We do know that. We've had Mr. Chris Liberto from the Monmouth County Health Department.
And he told
has
you you could do
inspect-
that?
Has inspected the facility, has inspected the rear barn and the dog runs, and advised my client that what his concern was had to do with the sanitary septic systems. He acknowledged that, based on inspections done for the dwelling by Champion Septic, that the septic system that exists in the westerly yard area is sufficient for the typical residential dwelling use of the property. He indicated that because of the dog breeding operation and the laundry facilities that are located, I didn't get to that part of my testimony, but the rear building does house the washing machine and the laundry facilities for the dog breeding operation. That would be needing a gray water system for laundry waste, which is being designed for the northeasterly corner of the site. There'll be a second system on the property just for that laundry waste. And that is designed, we just did the test pits for that last Friday. I had a couple of cancellations due to the wedding, and it was inspected by Mr. Liberto and found that the soils are suitable for that system as proposed, and that system would be designed and approved by the Monmouth County Health Department.
Can we get a copy of that in writing for the board to see that? Because to me, that doesn't sound right. I'd like to see that in writing.
Well, he hasn't given us anything in writing yet, but
I'd ask for
you can
something.
make it a condition of approval, we'll get you something in writing.
We really need something. I mean, I don't agree with that.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
He's a licensed health inspector from the Monmouth County.
I know.
I
I've never seen a
understand that,
kennel
but
like that.
according to our ordinances here, you can't necessarily go with what you have on site. We have to look at it at the aspect that tomorrow this applicant sells his property. We have to look at what can go in there at that time, because that variance goes with the property. They can, if it goes to a full-blown kennel, what do? It's not going to meet the health requirements of a kennel. And I think, according to our ordinance, Jennifer can correct me if I'm wrong, that this operation, being a commercial operation, is going to have to follow the guidelines of a kennel.
That's correct.
And if you do, then you're going to have to go, those dog runs are going to have to be concrete. The feces are going to have to be washed into a gutter, which drains in. And, I hate to disagree with Monmouth County, but a kennel is going to follow under the classifications of a kennel.
Also, do we need exact plans of the kennel?
Yes, we do.
So we need the architectural plans.
We're gonna
of
need
the
architectural
drawing of how it's
plans
going to be set up and
of the
work.
site.
That's what I thought.
It's all part of it. And it's going to have to meet whatever the state requirement is for a kennel. And I mean, what you're asking us to do right now is give you a kennel permission, a variance for a kennel in this property. And we have to look at it that way. I mean, yes, it's a breeder, yes, this, but if it's sold, it's going to be, it could be sold as a kennel, period. That's the variance. That it's a D1 variance. And that's going to fall under our kennel regulations.
Also, Mr. Chairman, I think that we should have a site review inspection.
Okay. You're
know.
a chairman. If you request it, we have to grant that.
I am requesting it.
Okay. Do you have a problem with that? Having a site review, from the site review?
No, not at all.
Okay.
One thing I just wanted to point out is that we were not prepared to address it as a kennel. We understand we're greater than 15 dogs. We were prepared to address the commercial breeding aspects of it. And the 15 dogs, I understand that's in the definition, and the dogs are described as dogs whole or in part. We thought that the fact that 18 of them would be puppies, and it would still be a kennel, but we thought that the board had the liberty to review this, and we're not prepared to address all the aspects of the kennel that you're bringing up tonight. I must
Yeah, but
admit that.
it's going to have to be, Mr. Geller.
But we understand that we had to meet the standards of kennels in your ordinance and the statute. We did understand that, and
Okay.
we're willing to accept that, but I didn't realize that you needed that much site plan detail.
You're going to have to, because, you know, what you're asking us to do is grant a variance for a kennel. And I mean, being a breeding operation, whatever, it's still a commercial operation.
Just
And,
one question the
Yes, sir.
applicant does have is the classification of a kennel and not being able to have a variance approved with specific limitations and conditions that limit the nature, type, intensity of the use.
we can't do that.
Well, the definition of kennel, any establishment wherein or whereon the business of boarding or selling or breeding dogs for sale is carried on, except a pet shop.
No. Got it.
So, you know, we have to go by that guideline. And regardless, the variance that we issue tonight, if they decide to sell the property, it could turn over to a boarding kennel, because that's how our ordinance is written. So any variance, we have to address that. Am I correct, Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to move forward, or do we need to address? I think you're going to be addressing, you know, the breeding operation at this point.
Let's
We need to move forward.
5 minutes, 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. We'll take a 2-minute break. 5-minute break.
The board will now reconvene.
Okay, sir.
Okay, before we proceed, Sean Hollingsworth would like to address the board quickly, but where we are tonight, we think we would just conclude for tonight the testimony that you've heard so far. We'd have to go back, and as you say, we'll have to submit further details that you're requesting. But Sean Hollingsworth would like to address the
Okay.
board. If we could swear him in, please.
Yes.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear the testimony you give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Yes, state your name for the record.
Sean Hollingsworth.
And Sean, you're one of the owners?
I'm one of the owners of Cream Puff Labradoodles. I just wanted to say to the board that, you know, we are going to step back and look, but we're committed to being in compliance and want to do what we need to do and are willing to do what we need to do. And we just need, we've been kind of finding it out as we go, so we need to know if, you know, what the town needs from us, and we'll do it. And I just want you guys to know that that's our integrity about it. This has kind of hit us, as you can imagine, as like a brick. So that's who we are about it, and that's what I wanted you to know.
Thank you, Mr. Holly. I just want you to understand where the board's at this point, too. A variance goes with the property.
Yes, I
You know,
understood.
whenever we, regardless if this is just a low-intensity use that your application is covering low-intensity, that doesn't mean that if you sell the property tomorrow, that a company won't come in, it'll be a full-blown kennel, you know, and that's
I was
That-
just explaining that to my daughter. She was like, how's it going? I'm like, I don't think so good. And she said, why? I said, well, they're looking at, you know, we know that this is our retirement, but they're looking at if we, you know, if we die or we were selling 10 years, then what would the next people do? And
Exactly.
so
We have to
I get
look
the
at that,
gravity of it.
you know, and a lot of people don't understand that, but us as a board, we have to look at that, because we have to take future generation into concern. You know, we have to use that as looking as our guide, because, you know, what's there today, by a variance being there, it could be a whole different things, because if you read the ordinance, the way it's written, commercial breeder, everything is within, buy, sell, commercial breeding, kennels, they're all in that ordinance, and it doesn't differentiate one from the other. So, you know, we issue a variance for the breeding operation, we can't tell you, and it can't be restricted to where it's strictly a breeding operation, because that's not how the ordinance is read and written. It covers all of that in that one language. And so, you know, I hope you understand that. We have to look at the worst-case scenario. After giving this variance, what could happen there?
Got it.
You know,
I do,
so-
we got it. So
Okay.
we're created to workability, and we'll get with these guys and see what, and reapproach.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Date. Need to discuss the date.
Okay. Eileen, what do we have? And remember, any submissions has to be done,
10 days.
you know, 10 days. We have to have enough time.
Okay.
April 9th, April 23rd,
23rd.
April 23rd. All right, you expire April 20th, so I'll need an extension of time.
That's fine.
You need to give me a date, like May 30th, May 31st.
We'll do May 31st.
Thank you.
The extensions to May 31st?
Yes. To April 23rd.
And then we're adjourning to April,
23rd.
23rd.
Without further notice. And that's with no further notice?
correct. Okay, application BA 17-19, Cream Puff Farms LLC, use variance, minor site plan, and ancillary bulk variances will be carried to April 23rd for the people that's in the audience that want to be heard. This will be open to the public at that time that we get through testimony. We will be opening it to the public for comments and questions of the applicants. The expiration date, this will be no further notice at 7:30, April 23rd, 2018, and extension of time to May 31st, 2018. Thank you, sir. Okay. Any further business of the board other than executive session? Seeing none. Do we need to adjourn and then go?
I need to read
Eileen
this
will
in
read.
first. Do we need
Sir?
a motion to go into executive?
Do we need to adjourn first, or?
No, I need to read this into the record
Okay.
first.
This way it'll be contained.
Okay, thank you.
Executive session resolution. Whereas Title 10, Chapter 4, Section 13 of New Jersey Revised Statutes requires that the public shall not be excluded from any meetings of a public body unless a resolution authorizing such exclusion is adopted at a public meeting. And whereas the Zoning Board of Adjustment of the Township of Howell has determined that such a closed meeting is required to discuss certain matters which are exempted from consideration with the public in attendance under New Jersey Revised Statutes 10:4-12, namely litigation. Now therefore be it resolved by the Zoning Board of Adjustment of the Township of Howell that the public shall be excluded from the next portion of this meeting and that the Zoning Board of Adjustment will not reconvene in public session thereafter. Be it further resolved that minutes will be kept of the meeting in closed session, and the time and circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public cannot be determined at this time.
Okay, do we need a motion to go to, okay, I
Motion
need
to
a
ad-
motion to go to executive session.
Right, motion to adjourn.
A motion to
Mo-
adjourn to
motion to adjourn.
executive.
Motion by Mr. Amata,
Second?
seconded by Mr. San Clemente. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none? Okay. Zoning Board of Adjustment adjourns at 9:40 for executive session.
That's fine, you know what? Can you scan it and just send me a copy of it? Okay, yeah, then just bring it back, that's fine.